Hello, welcome to the Crackpot podcast.
A beautiful day to start up a revolution. Molotov cocktails, martini shotgun shells. Wild, 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 wild one. God forbid the cops get called. I say the more the merrier inside this free. See it fall. I got front row tickets to the greatest show of all.
So welcome to the Crackpot podcast, and we have a special guest today, Sean. Should we call you Sean?
That's perfectly fine, thank you.
All right, we're going to call you Sean, and that's your name. James is there. Tell us what's going on.
So we're currently awaiting a fighter. We have a fight tomorrow. One of my and James's amateur fighters is fighting on a card up in the tri-state area tomorrow. And he's finalizing his weight cut, which is a interesting process for guys that are dropping down in weight class, especially for older guys. I say older in the sense that both him and I are in my early 30s, which is really old in fighter standpoint. So he's cutting weight and getting ready for his showdown tomorrow. So it sucks and it's frustrating and yeah.
So you're running this kind of a gym situation for him and helping him. You're training him and helping him to make weight for tomorrow's fight. Are you going to be the corner? Is that what you?
Yeah. So James is his primary coach for boxing. I've stepped in for wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and basic conditioning. He's been fighting both sides, unwillingly. He has some experience in the past, but he does have some boxing and jiu-jitsu experience. So we've come in to help out whenever we can, and yeah.
Craig's last two training sessions were with me in my mother's living room. We picked up the coffee table and put it on the couch, and he slapped the shit out of me. Excuse me, in my mother's living room. Oh, he only bruised 4 of my ribs.
It must have felt like going back in time for your mom, have boys roughhousing in the living room.
I have a garage, a 2-bay garage dedicated to these shenanigans, which my kids and my family enjoy very much so. So we don't have to do it in the living room, although that happens. But yes, we do it in the garage.
Yeah, I often link to your YouTube channel and Twitter when I'm encouraging young men that they should practice punching each other in the face, and drop your link in there. So I have seen your garage in those YouTube videos. We'll make sure to include that.
Yeah, I get a lot of flack at work and in a lot of other places, but realistically, I think it's beneficial for a lot of men to do this kind of work, even if they don't have a professional coach, just to get in there as far as a culture is concerned. We miss out on this type of roughhousing. We do it with our kids, but I think men in general miss out on that type of just physicality. And it's beneficial. It's beneficial in a lot of ways, not just for health or wellness, but just in the sense of learning and growing. And it's good. You know, I'm not a professional. I just have a lot of experience losing, but also a decent amount of experience winning. And James and I think have that have that in common. And it's good to pass those traits on to others. And I wish more people would do that. So any way we can help, the internet is a great avenue for that. So hopefully people can take advantage of it and learn from both our mistakes and our victories. So tomorrow, again, one of our fighters should have another win on their record. And, yeah, we're looking forward to it.
So, how much official fights does Craig have? Is this one of?
Well, there was the time that the two hood rats stabbed him in Park Heights when he was taking out the trash, and he knocked out one and did a judo hip throw on the other one, so he won that.
That's good.
There was the five guys from a hip hop bar that attacked him on the street in Towson. He knocked out two of them, but then the cops intervened and beat him up and maced him and locked him up. So I guess technically he lost by DQ.
So is this his first sanctioned fight? I don't think so.
He has not had any boxing matches. He's been sparring in a couple of boxing gyms for the past 15 years. Actually, it's more than that. I met him when he was 15, when we were both training with the Lock Raven boxing team. And he has had a number of stick fights. There's videos of him as one of the guys, one of the darker skinned guys of the group. Actually, there's a video of him where he jumps on a Reek's back and rides him to the ground.
I remember that.
Okay. That's Craig on his back. Okay. So most of Craig's fights have actually been stick fights. We had some video of him beating up a bunch of karate guys in a jiu-jitsu tournament, using extremely minimal skill, just being a 15-year-old kid and tackling a bunch of 30-year-old karate guys and taking them down. So it's a real mixed bag. He does hit harder than most professional boxers, his size. And,
he's the hardest hitting guy I've ever sparred with.
Yeah. So he's, our hope is that, the hand grenade we're throwing into the cage goes off, when the other person's in proximity.
So that's the whole point. This podcast is going to air after the fight. So he might legitimately hurt this dude tomorrow.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, he can knock people out with one hand with either hand. Yeah, with one shot with either hand. I did once have him spar with a 260-pound MMA guy. It was boxing sparring. He totally beat the piss out of the guy. It was like a horror show.
Do you think that the opponent knows what to expect?
No, he doesn't. If Craig hurts this guy, Sean like barred from entering fighters in future, but without tendering video footage.
Yeah, I mean, Sean's laugh at that question said it all right there.
I've sparred and fought probably a couple dozen people, and I have experience, but Craig is the only guy that's ever put me down in sparring. And, I had headgear on, and he's a natural athlete in the sense that some people are just born with power. I mean, some people can just hit really, really hard.
Robert E. Howard would have said he was well knit. Craig likes me like probably 10 times as much as he likes his father. Okay. So he cares about me. And we're using my body to practice on, and he was slapping me instead of punching me when we were drilling. And he actually dropped me, slapping me on the two ribs right below my latissimus muscle on the back. And I'm generally pretty good at taking beatings. So yeah. The way they wrap hands for amateur MMA is the same way they do it for pro boxing, and then they jam these hands into these little gloves. So yeah, if he actually manages to hit the guy more than once, he's going to seriously hurt him. So, and I'll try not to feel bad about that, but and if he doesn't, then he ends up rolling around on the mat with some wrestler on top of him while Sean's yelling, and I'm looking at the inside of my hands. Yeah, so, that's what we're looking forward to.
Yeah, it's either or. There's no in between. It's just either Craig kills this dude or he gets laid on for 3 rounds.
All right.
And I scream my lungs out as an exasperated coach, and James laughs next to me, slapping me on the shoulder.
Okay, so what does Craig have to do today? He's expected at any moment at your home, and so today is the day before the fight. So what does a day in the life look like today?
So today he is going to be very hungry and very thirsty. If he did what he was told, which I think he did. He hasn't had anything to eat after dinner yesterday, which was a light meal. Normally for amateur, you don't want to cut. He's cutting a significant amount of weight. You don't want to do that amateur-wise unless you absolutely have to. In his case, he was coming down a significant amount. So we've had him on a strict diet. We've had him doing conditioning, which he hates, which most people hate. Burpees, by the way, are a man's best friend. And so today, as soon as he shows up, he's getting into my bathroom. He's going to get in the hottest bath that he can stand. And depending on what he weighs, so I'm going to weigh him as soon as he gets here. If he's heavy, he's going to get a nasty Epsom salt bath. If he's close, he's just going to get a hot bath. Now, you want to avoid the Epsom salt because it dehydrates you quickly, which is not healthy. None of this is going to be healthy. You shouldn't cut water at all. It's not healthy, but people do it, and it does help size-wise. He's going to be significant. The payoff, for anybody that's listening, is he's going to be significantly bigger and stronger than his opponent. So that's the payoff. However, there's obviously a downside. So I'm hoping he comes in very close to weight, so he just has to sit in a hot bath and sweat off a pound or two. If he's more than that, then we got to use the salt to make sure he gets down to weight and then rehydrate. So we're about 4 hours away from weigh-ins. He's not here. So James and I are hoping he's close. And yeah. And then we go from there.
Okay, so the weigh-in, describe the weigh-in. Do you go to the venue or some other place? Where do you go?
So the weigh-in is always at a local sponsored either restaurant or venue. In this case, the main event guy, whose name
bar. It's a bar.
Is that a bar?
At least in this case, it should be nice. Hopefully, I don't know. So yeah, it's going to be at the main event guy, a guy I've trained with. He's a really nice guy, but he has a lot of clout because he sells a crap ton of tickets. It's at his local bar. So we're going to get there at a certain time, and it's going to be late, always. So at least a half an hour or an hour later, the big money sellers, the ticket sellers are going to show up, and my poor guy is going to be waiting at a bar where everyone's drinking and eating wings and suffering. And I say this because I understand. I've done 3 of these officially, quote, officially, and it sucks because you're sitting there smelling wings and beer and you can't do anything. And then what'll happen is the promotion we fight for is really good in the sense that you get to weigh in and then you can start rehydrating, drinking, eating. Then they send you to do med checks. So you have to get your blood pressure, you have to get a bunch of other stuff done. They sign you off and then you're good to go. But it's always at whoever's the main ticket seller. It's always at his local sponsor, wherever that is. So we do that tonight. They weigh in, they face off. and then we rehydrate and get ready for tomorrow.
My job as the elder auxiliary coach is moral support. So since Craig can't drink any beer, I'll be drinking beer while he's weighing in. Okay? I've done this for Sean too. It's one of the many things I do to sacrifice my own health for the well-being of others.
Okay, because I want to know what you will give him in that interval. Are you going to bring some food or water or Gatorade, or what do you give him?
Yeah, so I have because we're not skilled enough, a lot of these pros, they'll do IVs, which is the quickest and easiest way. For my full-time job, I'm pretty aware of that process as far as rehydrating and stuff via IVs. We don't have the ability to do that, so I have a concoction I make of electrolytes, of water that they need to imbibe, and then I have a food cycle that I put my guys on. So they drink, they eat, they drink, they eat, and they repeat that cycle until fight time. And that gets them back to, as best we can, fight weight, fight shape, and ready to go.
And what time is the fight tomorrow?
So Craig is second on the card. The first fight is supposed to happen at 7 p.m. However, the first fight doesn't happen.
About 7:45.
Yeah, 7:45 or so, and depending on how long the first fight goes, he's probably going to fight around 8 or so. So that does give him a lot of time to recharge, to
It's good
get
24
ready.
hours, yeah.
So that definitely helps a lot.
Okay.
I really don't like this for boxing. I guess it's okay for MMA, but for boxing, it takes 3 days for the fluid around your brain to recharge. So it causes more erosion when you're getting punched in the head. Seems like most of the brain damage in boxing, it doesn't kill you outright. That bothers you later on. It has to do with small action between the skull and the floating mass of fat that we think.
Yeah, and the other issue too is it saps your conditioning. So for my second fight, I was scheduled to fight at 170. I woke up, so weigh-ins are usually the day before. In this case, it's Friday. I woke up Friday morning at 179.5. So I cut 10 pounds of water that morning leading up to weigh-ins. I weighed in at 169.5, made weight. The next day, we're fighting in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has a very strict regime when it comes to that. They made me weigh in again. I weighed in at 185.7 the next day.
Oh my gosh.
So it helped in the sense that in my second fight, anytime we got into a grappling scenario or a wrestling scenario, I overpowered my opponent. I wound up winning by unanimous decision. However, by the third round, I was completely done. I was spent. And we had the amount of conditioning we did before that fight was unbelievable. I mean, I literally, it was, we did so much work that I could have gone, and in training I had gone 5-minute rounds, no problem. But cutting that much weight, doing those rounds in the ring, by the third round I was spent. And in the fight, if you want to look, you can. I was getting punched in the head repeatedly, and there was nothing I could do because I was so exhausted that I had to take my opponent down just to get a breath. So there's benefits to doing it, but there's the downfall, not just the brain, obviously, but also conditioning wise. It makes it really tough, which is why they don't want, and if you're listening to this, I discourage this, doing that for amateur or even pro on the local level because it's not worth it. I mean, yes, I won, and yes, it was awesome, but there was a lot of downfalls, and it could have very easily gone the other way. So you have to be very careful when you do these things because it's very dangerous, and you have to be very careful when you do it.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed message you're giving, but I understand. Here's something else to do.
Everybody does it, so everybody does it.
Yeah, it's like it's a mixed message, but I get it. Well, what about the weigh-ins? Because I've read about weigh-ins on
How about
yeah.
the wing at the hotel in Philadelphia?
What do you mean?
What's that? The woman actually tried to bribe her opponent because she outweighed like right from the athletic commission.
So I'm not going to say live what promotion. Obviously, if you do a little research, you'll find. We lucked out in the sense that the promotion that we've fought for, that I've done all my fights in, that all my fighters do fights in, is a very legit promotion. James was very skeptical in the sense that he's dealt with a lot of really shady promotions, which makes sense, and I've since learned. With any type of business that thrives on ticket sales, you have certain characteristics and certain people that try to do, shall we say, really bad things. So at our last weigh-in, where I did the same thing, I learned from my first lesson. I only cut 7 pounds of water in that fight. I didn't cut 10. So I was learning and growing. My fighter, one of the other fighters that was fighting on the card, he only cut 5. So we were great. We were doing good. However, we showed up at 5 o'clock, weigh-ins on time, because I believe in functionality and I believe, you honor your word and such. Well, we didn't weigh in until about 6:30, almost 7, because our fighters were big ticket sellers and they didn't decide to show up until then. So we had to wait because we sell a moderate amount of tickets. We don't sell a lot. And then one of the fighters that was from the same gym as the guy that I was fighting, it was a female, and she was on time. However, she was 20 pounds?
I think it was close to 30 pounds. It was 20 something.
She was 20-ish pounds overweight. She was a very attractive, very fit Caucasian woman. Her opponent was a very fit, thin Asian woman. And her opponent obviously didn't cut any weight whatsoever, maybe a couple pounds.
It would have looked like a wife beating. I mean, they weren't nowhere near the same size.
So James, being James, was talking to a couple of her coaches. Unknowingly, we were sitting out there suffering. Myself and my fighter were suffering because we still needed to rehydrate and we were waiting. So they were talking to James was talking to
I was comforting the mother of the savage little vixen that weighed in 30 to 25 pounds overweight.
And they weren't sure if she was going to make weight. And then the promoter and a couple other people come out, and we overhear that they had offered the other fighter money to fight. Now, in amateur rules, that's the whole point. In amateur, you're not allowed to fight for money. It's basically a government money-making scheme. They profit off of people that can't make money. But it is what it is. It's the rules. Well, this woman, who is not very smart, goes to weigh in while she's drinking. Her opponent made weight. She goes in. She's 20 plus, almost 30, I think, pounds overweight. Obviously, everyone's mad, upset. So the governing body, the athletic commission that was there, is talking to them. And she very brazenly, tells the commission that, well, we tried to offer her $2,000 to take the fight, but she wouldn't do it. And then the room got silent.
He said, I didn't hear that. I mean, and then she repeated it. He's like, no, you don't understand. I can't hear that. Okay. All right. I'm representing the state of Pennsylvania here. This stuff doesn't happen.
And meanwhile, my opponent, who was from the same gym, and her coach are slapping her, pushing her, grabbing her, trying to get her to shut up, because she's telling them that they offered this girl $2,000 to take the fight, and she wouldn't take it. And they told the commission that. Now, under normal circumstances, that would have meant that gym is going to get some type of sanctions. However, that gym is one of the largest in the tri-state area, so they got no sanctions.
They have Gracie affiliations, and the reason why they were offering that money is because they get good-looking people that aren't like criminals that have jobs and stuff like that. Like the guy Sean thought was like a popular bartender or some stuff. They get these people to fight and sell a lot of tickets. And when they win, they use it for advertising to get people of their same social class to sign up for these very expensive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu involvements.
Yeah. So that fight thankfully didn't happen because the Asian lady was very smart, and she said, "Hell no." She said, "I'm not doing this."
You got to give her a break.
And but I mean that's local politics. I mean the next day my boy Dennis went on to win his fight very convincingly. I wound up losing, but it was great to just get in there and put a show on. And
tell Lynn about the bathroom at the bar afterwards.
Oh my God! So
we're only alive because Sean lost. Okay, there was like 500 Goomba Italian idiots screaming their heads off in Philadelphia, and we were out of towners, and there's like 3 of us, right? We were going to get slaughtered if. So it's kind of the genesis of this fight. I told Sean, I said, look, get me a flat jacket and get Craig a match with this guy. And then when he knocks him out, we'll see if we can get out of here alive. Okay. So we probably would have been lynched.
Yeah. So I fought probably the most popular guy in Philadelphia. He sells like 600-700 tickets. He's a good fighter. He's a good fighter.
He's an argument for that theory in certain ethno-attentive circles that Italians are essentially African.
Stop it. That's where I draw the line. I can't have you saying that on this podcast.
Thank you. So anyway, we can cut in. Ready? 3, 2, 1. So I fought one of the most popular guys in Philly. He sells about 600 or 700 tickets. Good fighter. I came in not in the proper condition. I spent too much energy coaching my own guy, getting ready for the fight. So we had a good back and forth in the first round. I was a better wrestler. I was bigger, better fighter in the clinch, better kicks. He landed to my, I've always had this issue actually. He landed a good couple right hands and hammer fists right to my eye. And I've always had this issue. I don't know why. But I kept getting rubbed in my eye, which made it hard to see. So we go into the second round. We're going back and forth. And I kept getting hit, and he was very good in the sense that he hit me in the same spot in my eye. So by the end of the second round, I was completely gassed. I was spent. I was done. And I walked back to the corner, and I couldn't see. And I literally, it wasn't because of blood, it wasn't because of anything else, but he had punched me right in my eye, and my nose and my eye were starting to swell, and I couldn't see. So the doctor came in, did the finger thing. He said, "How many fingers am I holding up?" I said 2. He only actually had 1. So they stopped the fight, and he won. So back in the locker room, James and my buddy Dennis were helping me. I was putting ice on and everything. So we always go out to a bar to eat and drink and have good times after the fight. So my eye consistently started to swell at a significant rate the longer it went on. So I was in the bar icing my eye, which, as you can imagine, got very interesting looks. So eventually I had to go to the bathroom. So I went into the bathroom, and in this restaurant in Philly, they had a what do they call those? They call them I hadn't seen it in a long time. The guys that just stand in the bar and give you towels. Or,
they'll have an usher and
attendant. Yeah,
an attendant. So I'm in there, and to my luck, I was the only guy in the bathroom. So as I'm going to the bathroom, he starts talking to me. And he goes, "Hey, what happened? Are you okay? This and that, blah, blah, blah." Like, "Yeah, I got punched in the head a couple times. I had a fight, this and that, blah, 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 blah." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, one of my guys, insert name, is fighting tonight. What was his name?" And it was the guy I fought. And he goes, yeah, he's this and that, blah, blah, blah. I'm wondering how he did. And as I'm going to the bathroom in the urinal, I go, Yeah, he did pretty well. So I immediately wash my hands, get out of there, and go back to the table where it was like a dozen of us at. And I'm like, I need to get the hell out of Philly. Because at that moment, as I'm walking out, my opponent sold shirts. They were red shirts with like a lion logo or whatever, and the bar was rapidly filling up with red lion shirts.
Oh man.
I need to get the hell out of Philly. I'm done with this place.
So we went back to the motel, and his trainer prescribed a bottle of whiskey, and I think you drank it all. Did you drink it all?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't sleep that night.
And as you can see, it worked fine. It was an excellent prescription. Nothing the matter with the eye. The funny thing is the night before that we had two rooms, and I was with Sean, and Dennis was going to come up and hang out with us for most of the night before the fight, and he's late coming up there, and then he finally gets to the door, and he said I thought it was the right room, and I kept on banging on the door, and I saw somebody like peeking out through the curtains, and I kept banging, and then eventually my opponent opened the door, and he's like, "Oh, my bad." So this guy actually probably thought that Dennis was stalking him, and then during their fight, the guy manages to roll away out of a clinch, and Dennis crawls after him so maniacally fast that he looks like one of the monsters from this movie called Descent, about these women stuck underground, and these like humanoids are like crawling after him and eating him. It was really bad. So we had it. We were on both sides of that court, but that was. They put you all up at the same hotel,
just on different floors.
So.
And Dennis made the mistake of going to one floor below, and James wasn't exaggerating. He was banging on the door because he thought I was messing with him. And he was banging on this dude's door, and the dude opens the door, and it's the guy he's supposed to fight. And Dennis goes, "Sorry," and pieces out.
So one way to get in his head.
Well, I was all mad because I was like, they're going to cancel the fight. He's going to call the promoter and say you're harassing him. You're like attacking him. Thankfully, that didn't.
Okay, Sean, I want you to tell me about how you got into fighting, what kind of athletics you were into as a young man, and how did you, now you've got your own gym and your own fighters, so tell me how that happened.
Yeah, so it was very unwillingly. So when I was in kindergarten, I used to get my ass beat by the local kids in the trailer park that my mom and I lived in. So they used to smash my head against the curb and on the ground and stuff. And one day, which was very frequent, I would come home crying, and my mom, in all her maternity wisdom, said, "I'm sick of you effing crying every time you come home. I'm going to put you in karate." So that's what she did. So I was 6, almost 7, I think, and she put me in karate, where I learned to start kicking and doing everything else. So after a couple weeks of that, still getting my ass beat in the trailer park, one day I just had enough, and I front kicked one of the guys straight in his balls. And when he dropped, his older brother beat me up. But after that, I learned that if you kick people really hard, they typically tend to leave you alone. So I did karate for about 6 years, growing up doing that. And as I got better and I was able to kick harder and fight better, they started leaving me alone. I started doing kickboxing in middle school. It was a natural transition from karate to kickboxing. And then from that, again, living a very violent, both intentional and unintentional violent lifestyle growing up due to bad decisions. I learned how to fight through those. I won, I lost, but I always continued to do karate and or kickboxing. And then in high school, I started wrestling because the high school I went to was a very small high school and it didn't have football. So that's what every other random kid in my school did because football is God and whatever else. But we didn't have that, so I wrestled. So I wrestled in high school, and then after that, I joined the military. So I traveled a lot in the military. I traveled all over the world, and I learned a lot of other things from that. So I was never a great athlete. The only benefits I had was I was tall and I was skinny and I worked hard. So I don't have like super strength or speed or anything else, but I did well in wrestling. I did well in karate, because of those attributes. And I held my own whenever I got into a confrontation simply because I was tall, big, and aggressive. So in the military, I took that mindset and I practiced jujitsu. I started to get into Muay Thai when I was 20, when I started doing Muay Thai overseas. And I always wanted to compete because I had done tournaments. I had a gold and bronze medal in Taekwondo from growing up. And I always wanted to keep fighting and competing. It's just due to politics and traveling a lot with the military is really hard. So in my early 20s, I trained jiu-jitsu, I trained Muay Thai, I did a lot of that in the military. And then when I met James, I mostly met him for boxing because that was the one link that I didn't have. I'd never trained boxing.
You might want to tell Lynn about your first experience coming down to Baltimore.
Yeah, how did you find James? And
outside.
So,
and this is where you met Craig.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'd always through my whole life, adult life, I trained, I fought, at college, I fought locally just with, guys and whatever else. And, I'd done a lot of that. And then when I got older, I always trained and I was looking to round out my skill set. I'd never actually had a boxing coach. I always had a half decent jab just naturally. But I'd never had like hands training. It always been kicking based or Thai based or, wrestling based. So, I actually met James, online as most of us do. And, I met him through as my wife and I coined, through the gay violence guy, Mr. Jack Donovan linked James to an article he wrote that I still to this day I can't find because I tried to find it. And I clicked on it because he linked them. I'm like, okay, let's see what this guy's about. And I read James' stuff. I'm like, this guy's bullshit. There's no way this dude's legit.
You asked me a question too. That I remember answering. It was something about you sent me a video of a street fight or something like that.
Yeah.
You asked me to analyze it. But, okay, well, I'm glad to hear that you thought that I was full of shit.
So I'm like, all right, it's good. He's a good writer, and I'm always interested in reading, a lot of different stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, let me check this out. And in one of his articles, he goes, yeah, just email me. I'm very responsive. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I emailed him, and I sent him a video, and I asked him some questions. He literally got back to me in a couple hours. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, yeah, I'm in Baltimore, which is not far from where I live. And he goes, yeah, he answered my question. He's like, if you ever want to train, you can come down to this gym. Yeah, okay, whatever. So I started reading and I'm like, all right, this dude reads like he actually knows what he's talking about. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I sent him a couple emails. He got back to me back and forth. We were talking about some training stuff. And I said, okay, you know what? Are you, if I came down, would you be willing to train? He goes, yeah, here's the date. Here's the time. Do you want to set something up? So I'm like, okay. I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. So I talked to my wife, and she goes, are you really going to meet a dude you met on the internet? I'm like,
in Baltimore.
I'm like, we'll see how it goes, because I'm not allowed to carry a firearm in Baltimore, in Maryland, in the communist state of Maryland. Where I live, I'm allowed to carry a firearm wherever I want. So I'm like, all right, we'll see how this goes. So I drive down there. Like, we'll see what happens. So, so I pull up outside the gym, and no other than Mescaline Franklin is hanging out. And he's not just hanging out, he is walking back and forth, brooding outside this gym. And I pulled in my car, and I looked out the window, and I saw him. And I went, this is stupid. This is a bad idea. I shouldn't meet people that I talk to on the internet. Because he's a fantastic individual once you get to know him. But if you see this dude on the street, you will literally subconsciously walk the other way. And he was pacing outside this gym, just pacing, hanging out, doing his thing. And that was the day none of this almost happened. This relationship I have with James as a coach, as fighting, it almost stopped because of Mescaline, because of who he is as a person. So I made the conscious decision when I saw him walk.
Let's say that make sure everybody knows we love Mescaline Franklin. He's a great guy, but he has an intimidating aspect.
But yes, he is a take it on a level surface. Sorry, my fighter just showed up, so
Yeah.
he's about to get weighed in and maybe tongue lashed, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, no, Mescaline's an awesome dude. I would trust him with almost anything. But yes, again, you see him on the street and you're gonna run the other way. That's just who he is. So after that, I met Craig, who's fighting tomorrow, and James, and Craig proceeded to beat my ass, and James, I walked in and I was alone, and James walks out of the locker room and goes, "Oh, great, another fit guy. I guess we'll have to beat his ass then to make him fit." And that was the second time I almost walked away.
That's just
Well,
hazing, right? Like you have to just haze people as soon as they walk through the door of the gym.
Goes against all logic. It doesn't make any sense. But here we are, 5 years later, and it's been good. It's been a great relationship. A painful relationship,
It's
but
a moral imperative to try to discourage the prospective fighter. We'll be right back.
So yeah, they're going to weigh in, and yeah, so James and I started training. I only wanted to do knife and boxing. He got me into stick, and I had a natural affinity for it, especially being taller. I'm 6'1". It helps with an extension weapon and with a knife, even more so than boxing or wrestling. It helps a lot when you have that advantage. So we started doing that, and then one of the guys I've been training with, Dennis, and I had been talking, and we both came to the conclusion, like, we're getting older. Fighting is a young man's game. We're in our early 30s, so if we want to do MMA, which we'd always talked about, it's like, now's the time to do it. I mean, we're going to do it. We need to do it now. So I contacted the promoter, and thankfully, we lucked out in the sense that we got a legit promoter who's very honorable, who's always treated us fairly. And between the two of us, we have 7 fights, soon to be 8 fights under his banner. And, it's been great. Yeah, we've loved it. We're at 500 right now as far as our record is concerned between the gym. So tomorrow, hopefully we're going to be above that. And then, yeah.
Okay, well, neither one of us can figure out how to use the scale. You weigh 1,286 pounds.
Give me.
We'll excuse Sean to handle that.
Give me 5 minutes to work with my fighter.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes, between the two of us, we managed to come up with a weight of 1,286 pounds. We don't think that's it.
That's probably not accurate unless he. Yeah.
So, yeah, I felt right the first time that Sean came down. You know, it was an unintentional hazing. You know, I was actually, since he was a guy I met through the internet, I was kind of shocked to see how in shape he was. Yeah, because that's usually it's somebody with a lot less experience. And then I think Craig clobbered him.
Yeah, that's innocent. Start of a beautiful friendship.
162 pounds. Enjoy your bath. Okay.
How's that? Does he have to take the salt bath or just a hot bath?
Oh, Sean just grabbed the big bag of Epsom salt. So
all right.
Somebody's north of the necessary weight. So Greg's going back for his bath. Hi, this is Skylar.
So, you are a homeschooling family. I wanted to talk about this with you guys.
Okay.
Did you always know that you wanted to homeschool your kids?
I did all 3 growing up. I went to a private school, and then we were homeschooled, and we've gone to a number of different public schools. And when I first started, I mean, we met in college, and I didn't have it wasn't like a passion of mine until we had children, and suddenly the severity of that responsibility really hit home with me, and I realized if I send her away, I mean, at that time it was only 1, it's now 4. Yeah, the responsibility to be there, the person that teaches them everything in their life, by the time I think we had our second one, it was a pretty set track that we were going to homeschool. It was really never even a discussion. We just both kind of said it, and it was just fact from then on.
Yeah, we had I guess it was pretty early on, our third or fourth date. We were eating at the local cafeteria at college, and I flat out told her that, I wanted a wife.
Oh gosh. What?
Not only did I want children, but I wanted a wife that was going to stay home. And at the time, that didn't necessarily mean homeschool, even though that was in the back of my head. And I told her, again, this was like date 3 or 4. I said, if you're not on board with this, then this is not going to work. And she was angry initially.
I wasn't so much angry at him. It was the fact that he said it, and I immediately went, oh yeah, that's fine. And then sat there and went, why am I wasting money for a degree I am knowingly not going to use?
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
So I was so upset at just the reality of where I was and how I knew I wanted to stay home. I knew I wanted to be with the children. And so I was going to get a career to just leave. Long story short, I never actually ended up graduating college, so it didn't much matter. But
Well,
it was
that
good
was-
to have it wasn't because of,
Well, that was her fault. She got pregnant.
I got
so.
pregnant. I just kept doing that.
No, that was completely her fault.
No, that's much smarter.
That's really what.
I think it's great. I'm glad you did that. I wish I had done that. So
So,
do you
yeah,
do like
so-
100% homeschooling curriculum, or do you have, what kind of groups? We have a group, we have a really nice group that we meet with twice a week that guides our curriculum and stuff. So I'm curious. I'm also curious because you're at least partially a second generation homeschooler, and I think that the homeschooling movement has really gotten mature because you do have a lot of second generation homeschoolers and so many resources available. People might not know, but there's tons of stuff out there.
Yeah, it's interesting, even in the communist states that we have in the U.S., a lot of people on both the left and the right spectrum are starting to realize that they need to take advantage of being able to educate their children, and right or wrong, in the way that they choose.
Right.
I was really surprised with just how many choices there were. When I did homeschooling, I did a Becca. You had a book, a DVD, you put in the book, and it was just like being in school, and that did not work for me in the slightest. I pretty much failed middle school. My brother, who has has a much higher IQ.
You come closer. You can, Skylar, you can come a little closer. The sound will be better.
I was just telling Sean in the car after listening to the conversation that Skylar should do podcasts because she's got a great clear voice.
We can do a girl podcast together.
That's fascinating perspective on life.
Homeschooling, mom talk.
There you go. We could actually find a niche. There's room there for it.
Oh yeah.
But I did not thrive in a Becca. My brother did. He's a math professor. He has the brain. He didn't need people to help him. And so when we chose to do it, right now we're part of a co-op that only meets once a week for 8 weeks, and then it takes 4 weeks off, and then it meets another 8 weeks. So every other activity is strictly at home. We've used Khan Academy, which kind of, it drives the direction of our math courses.
What grade is your oldest?
I have a second grader and a kindergartner. And then number 3 is in preschool to give me a little bit of time to actually teach the older 2.
Yeah, you have to occupy the younger ones somehow. Yeah. That's how I have these like these painting things. That's from podcasting.
See, this is why a mom podcast would never work, though. We didn't have
Especially because the kids see each other on the screen, it seems to cause some extra reaction.
This is actually working out very good that Skylar's pitching in here because Sean's got to go get some more Epsom salt boiled over.
Oh man.
Okay.
It needs to be a high concentration. Is that the problem?
Oh, there's a lot of methods for cutting weight. The easiest way is to douse a hot bath in salt because it sucks fluids away from your body. However, it sucks fluids away from, vital organs such as your kidneys, your liver, your heart, important stuff. So currently, our fighter is a little overweight, so he's getting the treatment right now.
Okay. Well, he's got 2 kidneys and 2 lungs, so he
he only needs one.
Strong heart.
Oh man.
So
we're doing homeschooling now.
I heard. Yeah.
I'm just an observer here. Okay. I'm the technical. I'm the gaffer or whatever.
What has been your favorite part of homeschooling?
I mean, it's probably such a double-edged sword, but it's them being here all the time. We have a school bus, obviously, that drives through the neighborhood, and there are little girls that just live catty corner to us, and I'll be with the kids all day, every day, and at 3 o'clock every day, they drop off and come home, and I'm just thinking, you guys have been, we've done so much, and they're just always with me. It's second nature. If I go to the doctors now alone, because we have a family doctor, he actually asks, where are all the kids? They're not here with you? They're just kind of part of our everyday. And there are obviously days where I would love some alone time.
Oh, yeah.
But it does not need to be up. No, honey, no.
Well, I call it homeschooling privilege because you can do stuff during the day and during the week when other people can't. So we live not too far from the ocean, and in the fall, the weather is actually better than it is in the summer. So we go like September, October, we go to the beach a lot during the week when no one's there. So it's awesome. I call that homeschooling privilege. But yeah, like no time alone. It's a little hard sometimes.
Luckily, they're all cooperative with the quiet time. But yeah, you're right. Because Sean's schedule is so unique that he's actually able to be there randomly during the week as well. And we fully take advantage of that. I mean, Wednesday afternoons, no one's anywhere ever. So that's when we would go to the local events
and people always ask, why aren't you in school? What are your, kids are home. Yep.
And I mean, I was actually training to be a teacher. So I felt like I definitely had a little bit more of an idea what I was going to need to do. Stop that, please. I was not prepared for how individualized you say it out loud when you're talking about the benefits of homeschooling, but when you actually have to implement a completely different curriculum over something you just taught because your child is so different, I found that was probably one of the biggest surprises. I mean, my oldest one took to reading so quickly, I don't even think I had to teach her. She just did it. And our youngest, our second daughter now, was the exact opposite. She loves and just understands numbers, but the reading has been a real struggle for her. And the benefit is that I can sit down and, honey, I need you to stop. You're going to hit me. You can sit down and do what they need out of you rather than trying to get that cookie cutter experience that they would have gotten in a public school or even a private school. Because there's 24 kids in a classroom. There's no way a teacher can provide that kind of, oh my goodness. There's a headlock going on.
That's funny. Yeah, they are all individuals, and that sounds like a cliche until you have more than one kid and you see that they're totally different. Yeah, talking about James and Sean both mentioned about kids beating them up and picking on them, and I just think there's so much downside, and now, especially in California, it's just almost unthinkable to go to a public school. There's just it's too much, and that's like,
sorry.
And that's aside from the idea of like teaching your kid to read. That's the thing for James too, about that some kids do it automatically and some kids don't, and you have to figure out how to teach them.
Yeah, we have definitely had some horror stories because my oldest is now in second grade. So the friends that we had from like a MOPS group, they've all grown up and gone on, and we've already had, second graders, horror stories about time on the bus or, the bully in the class or scary stories the kids come home with. And it's just because they're around other people and you have no control. For however long it is, up to 8 hours a day. I don't know what's going on. And I've always said about my children, if they met Jesus and he spit, that would be the only thing they picked up. So it's probably a really good thing that we're, I don't want to say sheltering, but having a more control over their environment, at least until they're able to pick up what is and is not a good habit. Right now, all habits are something they're grabbing onto.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't subscribe to this idea that you have to socialize, like that you're getting some kind of special socialization. Actually, James, I had bookmarked this for you. There's an article going around now about how schools are using, essentially they're using like padded room jail cells and locking kids, they're locking kids in there like in solitary confinement. And there's stories about kids who are like smearing feces on the wall. I mean, stripping them down naked and putting them in padded rooms. It's just horrifying. Like, how
Oh,
can you?
so I started to laugh. I thought maybe it was going to be like an anger room or something where they could go in and punch the walls. No.
I'm sure
No.
the idea is out that way.
Okay, so they're actually learning how to deal with incarceration in the future.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh,
Wow.
a padded room for the naughty students.
Oh,
So
All right.
We did that at our gym.
yeah, I know. We literally have a half the gym is padded. So yes, literally.
but you know,
all right.
imagine having your kid, even if they don't do that to your kid is still in school with kids who are being tortured, you know, like CIA grade torture on site. It's awful.
Well, I mean, I mentioned that earlier, but yeah, I mean, literally every day before and after school in kindergarten and first grade, I got my head slammed into a curb or on a floor. So,
It's just now the teachers are getting in on it.
yeah. So, and thankfully, to my mother's credit, she wasn't the best, but, you know, as I said, I'm sick of you crying, here's what we're going to do about it. So, that helped in a sense. So, learning to kick dudes in the head and in the balls was very, very influential in my early childhood development.
Well, you can teach your kids that too without the torture part that leads up to it, you know? That's the beauty of it.
Oh, would James like to tell a tale of what some of my kids have done to each other since you started showing up?
Well, we just witnessed the headlock.
Yeah,
Oh.
that was good.
The headlock is fine. It's just the other things that now you have to.
Well, they all have pirate bandanas now, except for the youngest. Right?
You lost one, but yes.
That
Okay.
pink one somewhere.
Okay.
Somewhere, but yes.
They made a flag out of it because they had to have a pirate flag.
I gave I did some boxing training for a financial consultant from India when I was in New Jersey, and the daughters were both adorable, and they asked me if I was a pirate, and I said yes, I'm a pirate. And he said, "You mean you're a fighting pirate?" Because they already told them I was a fighter. I said, "Well, being a pirate, you have to realize that people don't always want to just give you their stuff. They might want to fight to keep it." So in their minds, I was teaching their father advanced piracy for New York. He goes to work.
Yes, we've already had, all three of them are proficient at takedowns. They all know how to tap.
Yeah.
The middle one is, if she weren't going to be as tall as she was going to be, she could probably be a gymnast. She's as bendy as they come, and the boxing ring is actually just one giant spring mat for her, so she's up on the walls, jumping off of it and doing flips, but
She was showing me cartwheels today.
yeah, she just started doing that one day. The baby now, obviously 18 months old, has no concept of what is and is not safe or appropriate, so she just grabs anything and everything and hits you with it. And when my son was younger, I actually had to ban him from the gym for a while, because I was always very supportive of maintaining a masculine environment when necessary. I always actually feel uncomfortable going in to the gym when they're getting into a session, because my presence will immediately change the environment. And the girls will immediately change the environment, even just because they're children, but more so because they're little girls. So when my son was born and he started integrating into that group, he was the only one that was allowed out. I explained that to the girls, that sometimes men just need to have a room, and Uriah is going to be a man one day, so he's going to be with the guys. And then I had to start hovering over him everywhere we went, because he would find things to hit people with. And I finally explained to Sean that I desire to be a helicopter mom, and I'm kind of forced into this position right now because my very large, very strong son is hitting people hard with sticks. So we had to take a hiatus from the gym for Uriah because he just didn't have the concept to know that was only for the gym. And now he does, and we're dealing with the new baby. But we have foam swords now, so it doesn't hurt nearly as much as, my mom's group had rhythm sticks. And I was a pariah for a while.
That's so funny.
What do people that you know outside that don't homeschool their children, do you get any feedback of any kind from people that just send their kids to the brainwashing centers?
It is almost the same. So I experienced the exact same thing, the same reaction when I tell people I'm homeschooling as I do when I tell people I had unmedicated childbirth. You asked me a fact, I answered your fact, and they immediately start giving me excuses as to why they could not or should not do that. I didn't ask. I didn't say anything judgmental. I simply answered, I have all 4 kids at the grocery store. Yes, they're homeschooled. And they go right into, well, I would have loved to do that, but I never asked. I'm very happy with my life choices. I'm sorry you're not happy with your life choices. I can't change that. I'm also a huge supporter of not everybody should homeschool. I've actually had to have the conversation with my oldest daughter of she was being very difficult doing her lessons, and it was becoming a fight every single day. And I think on Monday, I looked at her and had to explain, I don't want to sacrifice my relationship with you in order to do this. I have a passion and a drive to homeschool, but if it's going to make you hate me, we're not going to do this. So I need you and I to come to an agreement that...
Yeah, we've had that talk.
Yeah, you're only 8 years old. You're kind of making my life really miserable, and I'm thereby making your life miserable. So... But yes, the reaction is immediate of, oh, so great. I'm always praised. Like, that's amazing. Good for you. But, and I never asked.
That's better than, it's in different areas, but.
Up here it's very, it's supported. There are massive communities of homeschoolers in this area.
Better attitude than what I ran into. I wouldn't have been legally allowed to do it. Okay, because I was a high school dropout, but my wife actually had an associate's degree, and in Maryland she would have been allowed to homeschool. And my in-laws from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and my side of the family from the Baltimore area, they were all adamantly against it, that I was suggesting. Everybody in my family on both sides were adamantly against it, that the real value in school was that it socialized your child so that they could get along and that they could learn what the real world was about. And so I told my mother, I said, you mean like when you made me play baseball and the first baseman beat me up every day after practice because I wasn't any good? Is that what? And, so it's, people and I don't know what the current attitude in that area is now on homeschooling because I'm just not involved with those people that have had children at that age where I grew up. But I'd have to think that they would be really, with what school was turned into in Baltimore County and Baltimore City, literally penitentiaries, any parent that would probably be jealous.
That's actually true. That's a good point. It is a reflection of the nature of our education system that people are not only supportive but envious of our ability to. I know I've gotten a lot of, how are you able to financially do that? We had always orchestrated our life with the idea of living off of one income, so that wasn't a difficult circumstance. We also get a lot of, okay, but when are they really going to go to school? So there's this expectation of either failure or it inevitably ending and the normal thing happening. And then a lot of people, more Sean than I get questions, because at this point you only really interact with the people you can relate to. I hang out with homeschoolers because who else is free on Wednesday in the afternoon? So, but he gets asked a lot like, what are you going to do if it doesn't work? Not necessarily when are you going to end, but like, again, the expectation of failure. This is a cute experiment, but they're going to need real education soon, right? So there is that underlying tension of this is a great idea, but because it's still so new, and frankly, we are just now coming up to the first generation of long-term homeschoolers. I've had a couple of moms that I've met who were homeschooled all the way through high school and are now planning to do that to their children. I was only homeschooled for 2 years. So the idea of once they get to a certain age, kind of, especially with my oldest, who is very much like me, acknowledging that there will probably be a desire on her part to go to a public school or some kind of mass education system that so she's just around people. I'm a people person. And I had to explain that to my mom was, this education is great, but I need people. I actually thrived in a classroom setting. And I mean, Becca didn't work at all. So.
No, I never went to college. I got beat up in a gymnasium in the college at a martial arts tournament one time. That's like the closest I got. But my youngest son spent 5 years in college, and for the first 3 years when he was in a community college, he taught high school graduates basics.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was the only guy that learned anything in his high school.
Mm-hmm.
So he immediately becomes a teacher's assistant, and he's teaching basic stuff to these community college attendees. And I got the impression from that high school wasn't necessarily doing a good job of preparing people for higher education. I mean, do you think what would be the difference? And is homeschooling closer to going to college, or is what would prepare you better? Because you two have both been through college. I don't know what it's like.
I mean, I know you can probably attest to this as well. I feel there's more pressure on homeschoolers to perform to the best of our abilities because we are scrutinized. In fact, this year my oldest is being evaluated, which sounds scary, but it's usually not. But we do get checked up on, and we do have. I personally feel that if they're behind, it is your fault. There's this level of responsibility. Whereas I was fortunate, A, I'm driven, B, I'm intelligent, and C, I just had some really good teachers in high school. I went to 2 different high schools and on opposite sides of the states. One was in Alaska and one was in Virginia. And at both times I had just really dedicated teachers in every subject. Sean, on the other hand, did not. He was also the student that I would describe as the pass-along student. Every teacher would just give him enough to get him through because he was trouble and he was frustrating and they didn't want to have him again next year. So, and he would not argue. So you have a higher likelihood of more children, more students getting to college just wildly unprepared because, again, there's just too many. There's no way for a teacher to give each student their best or to expect that every student is going to perform at their best. Leah is my only student. She can't fail. I would catch it and we will fix it and do better. I also have the desire for her to perform best or better or as well or better than anyone else in her grade level. So I feel like they should. In fact, I'm sure there are studies that have come out because homeschooling is so worried about math. We are now outperforming students in math, but English is starting to dip down a little bit. And there's always this ebb and flow, but math was always the struggle. And now we're overcompensating and we have well-performing math.
I think we're probably going to take the lead in math also because the public schools are doing this Common Core nonsense. And that's just garbage. So if we do Saxon math. So we're doing Saxon math, which is like super basic, old-fashioned, but it's easy in a way because it's so incremental, but it works. And it's going to be better than what the kids are coming up with in Common Core. And I wanted to say that I taught those remedial classes at the university, not just at the community college. And the fact that community colleges do cover high school level work means that if you are a homeschooler and you want to take a lab class like chemistry or biology or whatever, we can make arrangements with the community college and get our kids in there, starting at 15 or 16 or whenever they're ready. And homeschooling kids do really, really well. Like I'm here in the Silicon Valley and in our homeschooling group, everybody's dad is an engineer and everybody's mom almost, went to college or whatever. So you have like really motivated people who we know what to do. I always had this arrogance of like, I'm smarter than any public school teacher and I will do a better job. So I still have that arrogance, but it's tempered now with the fact that it's a lot of work, from one day to the next, and the kids are unique and they give you unique challenges. It's especially at the elementary school level, there's resources and it's really doable.
Yeah. I know a lot of the moms in my co-op, myself ignorantly included, have said things like, oh, I just can't wait till they're in middle school and high school because then it'll just be so much easier. And all the high school moms are looking at me going, do you have any idea how much work this is?
Yeah.
Yes, they live. But this matters. Like, elementary school, you're pretty much just playing
Right.
to teach. I mean, you do some paperwork, whatever, but let's make slime. That's how you learn fraction. It's fine. Yeah. Biology's not the same for a high schooler. And yeah, the idea of them being able to start accumulating high school credits and things like that, it's just, I know even in the city, we have people that offer private paint lessons, or the idea for me that I can get the less expensive piano lesson because we can have different times. Well, that's my little, I'm going to have to go grab the baby real fast. She's made herself known.
Mom life.
This has been really a pleasant departure from our normal thing here. I think we've had like 7 people on this podcast now, and the whole time the dog has been nuzzling me to be petted while we're doing this. It's very pleasant.
Craig is calling Sean. Do you want to go upstairs and check on him?
Okay.
From
Craig is upstairs.
Calling from the tub.
Okay, I gotta go rescue a boxer from the bathtub. Okay. So we might have to call it here.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me, Skylar, and maybe we'll do this again. This might be a good thing for us. So I'm happy to have met you and your family. I've heard a lot about you guys. So
this is great. Yes, I finally have a face to the voice I've been hearing.
All right. Well, that was the Crackpot podcast. Thank you.
Getting late and we've got shit to do in outer space. Mothers can wait. We will take the ones worth saving. Pack your bags, we are vacating now. Forever, forever. There's a cosmic radio in my head, and it's reading news articles, and the correspondent sadly said the universe is flat. He also mentioned that gravity is caused by our cavities and our reflection of time's not a receding headline, it's all mass produced in the back of our mind. There's some things that we will never know, and I don't ever want to know. out yonder through the traffic and the people too. Boy, it really makes me wonder